I'm Ron Gallagher at Maximum Velocity Physical Therapy, and you're listening to HYPERSPEED Radio. You don't have to live in pain, whether you're running, swimming, playing a team sport, or just everyday fitness. We bridge a gap between medicine and strength and conditioning to help you break through at MVPT. Wow. What's up, HYPERSPEED Radio? This is Ron Gallagher, Maximum Velocity Physical Therapy, coming at you live from Las Vegas. Well, maybe not live. On a podcast from Las Vegas. And I would like to say that it is still sunny and warm in Las Vegas. Can you believe that, Trav? It's
unseasonably warm.
Unseasonably warm. It's been amazing. So I was thinking, what should this next topic be? And I came up with this topic while having a conversation with a patient. It seems that I have a reputation as being the strength guy. So if you think you have a problem that can't be fixed, that doesn't require strength, you don't want to come. So I want to address that. And really what I find myself gravitating to as a clinician is more of a performance specialist physical therapist. And that means that it's not necessarily one sport. It's not necessarily one aspect. It's generally developing game-ready athletes, even kids. So I'm going to talk about what is the difference between what we're doing at Maximum Velocity in terms of performance and talk about how my development as a PT has led me to this place. I come from a really long history of being an athlete. I remember being in elementary school and just like not able to sit still for 5 seconds because I want to play basketball, or I need to kick that soccer ball or foursquare or something, but I need to move. And I played football, baseball, soccer, cheerleading, and then as a result, as an adult, got into more endurance stuff. I'm an Ironman, five-time marathoner, 25 half marathons or more, 6 half iron, Spartan, CrossFit. So as an athlete, I feel diverse in the things that I've tried and done. And then my education is in sports injury management, which is essentially athletic training, and spent some time in the training room at UNLV, and I was like, this is definitely not my gig. You have to love being in the training room and cleaning, and you end up being a water boy during football, and that just isn't me. So my love of sports helped me become the type of clinician that I am. I mean, I remember going to the batting cage, and my dad had one of those camcorder recorders that had the little playback. So I would hit a round of balls and then review them and try to hone my swing by using this little recorder. And I was doing that like early teenager. And I remember watching Major League Baseball players, and I could tell who was who by the way that they moved. The way their arm moved when they pitched, the way they positioned the bat, the angle of the bat, how they moved their hips. I didn't have to see their jersey. I didn't have to see their name. I knew exactly who it was based on how they moved. So I feel like I've always been a student of movement. And in my career, I have done tons and tons of coaching and have become a student of coaching. And one of the things that I'm really frustrated with is the influencer population helping people do dumb things. Just because a person looks a certain way or can do a certain thing doesn't mean that the next thing that comes out of their mouth is gold. And we never know what they're being sponsored to say. Just because they have a version of back pain doesn't mean that you should be doing their exercises. And that's often a really big trap that people fall into. Just because you're a former athlete, whether it's professional or just high level, doesn't mean you can coach. You could have got lucky and you wouldn't even know. And just because you know a bunch of drills because you played at a high level doesn't mean you can apply those drills to a young athlete and teach them how to do their thing. Understanding the development of athletes and why drills are important and what drills drive performance is really the crux of coaching. I've coached baseball, cheerleading, running, and when I say running, I've coached athletes personally. I've coached 800 meters, which is a track event, all the way up to 100 milers. So I've coached everybody in between. 800 meters, mile, 2 mile, 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, 50K, 50 miler, 100K, 100 miler, and everything in between. I also coached at UNLV as an assistant coach. I assisted 2 really, really amazing coaches who are making huge impacts on the college coaching scene at the moment. One is an 2-time Olympic qualifier in the 800, and the other was an NCAA champion, actually lost in a little teeny tiny 1/100th of a second to the previous coach to make the Olympic team. So he just missed it, but he's an outstanding coach, now a national champion at USC as a coach. And then been around a couple other Olympians as a result. So the coaching pedigree that I experienced at UNLV was amazing. That experience took me to the Olympic trials, and I made it a point to watch all the top stars, regardless of their distance, because I was coaching 800 meters there. I watched everybody warm up. I was in the warm-up tent. I was in the cool-down tent. I watched their teamwork. I watched how they got ready, and then essentially followed them from the tent onto the track and stood in the coach's box and watched some of our top athletes at the time race preliminaries and race in finals, and actually got to see one of the coaches that I warmed up was on the track when he qualified for the Olympics. I saw Ashton Eaton set the world record in the decathlon, which is an amazing experience. I have pictures on my camera of the world record being set in the decathlon, and it's just an amazing experience, and have drawn from that experience quite a bit. As an assistant coach, when we got to a meet, whether cross country or track, I didn't really have a whole lot of responsibility. So I made it a point to go and watch the best teams warm up. And I literally watched 100 teams warm up. And I wanted to know what everybody was doing. I wanted to know, were they stretching? Were they doing drills? Were they doing exercises? What were they doing to warm up? And have essentially got my track warm up down to about 10 minutes based on what everybody in college track and field that we raced against was doing, and then the experience at the Olympic trials. Some things happened that were kind of unforeseen as an assistant coach. I get a phone call one day, and one of the coaches that I assisted said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, working. What do you think I'm doing? He said, "You're going to want to come to the track." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "The Oregon Project is going to be here. And if you don't know the Oregon Project, these were Olympic caliber club out of Eugene, Oregon that were basically the top runners in the world. And since then have a little bit of a black eye, but I was at the track with Mary Kane, Centrowitz, and had a really amazing experience. So I'm standing there watching them warm up, watching them do a track workout, and then the top sprint coaches from USA Track and Field showed up. And what the Oregon Project was working on was creating sprint mechanics in the last 400 of a 10K or a 5K. And they were basically using these sprint coaches to teach them a completely different movement style in the last 400. And they had motion capture cameras set up and a whole bunch of video equipment, and they did that at UNLV's track. And so I stood there all day and basically stood behind these guys and watched them teach these guys how to use sprint mechanics. And it was incredible. At the same time, David Henry, who's the physical therapist for the Oregon Project out of Eugene, Oregon, was doing Mary Kane's initial evaluation when she joined the Oregon Project. And I shook his hand. We started talking. He said, "Hey, I'm doing Mary Kane's evaluation over there in the shed. Do you want to join me?" So I sat with David McHenry and watched him do Mary Kane's initial assessment in the shed. And when I walked away from that experience, I thought, I'm one relationship away from being this physical therapist. I can do everything he can do and more. And that's not a knock on him because I thought he did a great job. But I'm every bit a caliber of PT as this guy. And so that was a really great experience. I used that experience to train and coach a youth elite triathlon team. At one point, I had 19 athletes that got whittled down to about 9 that all qualified as elite. 3 of those athletes are now racing in college. And basically, there's USA Triathlon has what they call the youth circuit. It's 5 races around the country that are all trying to qualify for elite nationals. And we had 9 elite nationals. We were ranked 16th in the country. We got what they call a high performance designation, which is a really, really long, ridiculously long application process. And I had to explain everything I was doing to USA Triathlon. And when you're deemed a high performance team, it means that they stand by you and your ability to participate in the Olympic pipeline, which is the winners of the elite national races feed into the Olympic program to produce the best triathletes in the country to represent the United States in the Olympics. So essentially, that process is developed to be able to do that. And we got a grant from USA Triathlon to do that. And I coached their running and their biking year round. We did essentially crit style draft legal bike training year round. And they all participated in swim club. So I didn't have to do their swim training. But essentially get them ready for elite triathlon, and which is very different than an age group race. But I have coached many age groupers: sprint, Olympic, half iron, full iron, and with the team that I coached, I also took care of their strength training all year. Basically keep them as healthy as we possibly can. So periodized the strength program over the year, and worked on things like transitions between swim and bike, flying mounts, flying dismounts, and getting these guys to race at a really high-level elite way. I also did some CrossFit stuff. I've done CrossFit certification in aerobic capacity, which is essentially CrossFit endurance. Did some CrossFit specific physical therapy courses to be able to take care of athletes who want to use barbells. Done some run and race specific training for Spartan and Tough Mudder. I have a long list of military athletes that I've trained: Coast Guard, Marines, Air Force Special Forces, which is essentially the same as SEALs, but the Air Force version of that. Shout out to Mike. What's up, Mike? Law enforcement, probation officers. I just started a program yesterday with a gal who's going to apply to the CIA, and she has a physical test that she needs to take. And we're essentially going to give her a program that prepares her to pass and excel at that particular program. So there's a wide range of athletes in there who are basically showing up to physical therapy unhealthy or needing some physical therapy foundation that turns into strength training, that turns into an aerobic base, and then becomes anaerobic work to increase speed or performance. So going to somebody who understands the gamut of those skills is super necessary if you want to prepare yourself for your A goal. So what I've done is I've come up with 5 case studies that essentially show these skills in a specific way. The first one is Sarah. Sarah was friends with a couple other triathletes that I was training, and she wanted in. So I was coaching her, and we were thinking about some long distance stuff, but at the time we were pretty much sprint and Olympic. One day, out of the blue, she calls me up and she goes, do you think I can do Tough Mudder? And I was like, no. She was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you haven't really been putting any specific training into it, and I don't think it's a good idea. And she said, well, I got friends going, and we just love doing stuff like this, and I'll be careful. Okay, if you promise to be careful, then okay, but just take care of the details, and we're not trying to win this race. Just be smart. She was like, okay. She tore her ACL, and we were super, super upset. We didn't have the training to do it. We knew that it was going to be a challenge, and she jumped off a wall a funny way and tore her ACL. Well, we had Ironman on the schedule in 9 months from the surgery. So she went from torn ACL with surgery to completing the full Ironman in 9 months. We essentially used her swim training as soon as her scope holes were healed. And I was thinking to myself, can she get ready for the swim in 9 months? Yes. Can she get ready for the bike in 9 months? Yes. Can she go from ACL reconstruction to running and then running a marathon in 9 months? Yes, she could probably do that. So essentially created an exercise program that started out as managing her post-operatively for ACL reconstruction, and then get her to running at 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and then from 10 to 12 weeks of running, establish the ability to do the Ironman. And she was amazing. She worked her tail off and did such a great job. So having the knowledge of training, having the knowledge of strength training and how to prepare this leg for essentially 15, 16-hour activity, that's performance specialization right there. The next athlete is Jessica. Jessica had a year and a half worth of hamstring pain, but a really long history of lower back pain, and participates in the trail community. Wants to do lots and lots of ultra type distance running, and essentially she had been all over the place, and nobody was able to help her. Well, the orthopedic skill of treating a high hamstring strain is really, really challenging. And if you want to run with a high hamstring strain, that's really, really a hard orthopedic patient. She had lumbar spine involvement in this hamstring problem, and she was able to get healthy. And then from healthy, we got her nice and strong. So she was deadlifting nearly twice her body weight. And then eventually she was able to start doing some aerobic base. She started to run some. And then eventually she was able to increase her mileage up to a 60K, which is around 38-ish miles. So she continues to run pain-free today. And having the orthopedic and training skills and applying some run coach art comprehensively, she was able to get back to ultra distance type running. The third athlete is Julia. Julia is 12 years old. She came in the very beginning as a injured ankle, and essentially got her ankle healthy, got her on a strength program, was basically the foundation for high-level soccer. So she plays ECNL soccer, and was just named All-American by her club, and she's going to represent the United States in a tournament in Spain next summer because of how good of a soccer player she is. Along the way, I was trying to think of ways to improve her ability as a soccer player, and thought about making her into a cross country and track athlete. So essentially, we're going to use track training to get her faster to run track and cross country and club soccer. And when it's time for her to be recruited, we're basically putting her on a path to be recruited. And if she runs the school record in the 800 or the mile, and she, wins state in track, she'll have a choice of whether to do track and cross country or soccer in college. And so the knowledge and experience of getting her healthy, getting her strong, giving her things that help her performance, put her in a position for her to play the best soccer she can play. She's literally been injury free for a long time, knock on wood. But keeping her healthy, keeping her strong, performing at a high level, plus the experience of being a college coach and working with recruiting is a feather in our cap. So we're trying to give her some options. We're trying to keep her as healthy as we can, keep her operating at a high level, and see what she does in high school and beyond. So that's Julia. Next one is Jim. Jim is in that trail community, long distance runner, ultra distance runner, was running for 5 years before he moved to Las Vegas and was repeatedly injured, chronically injured, every year, major time away. And got him healthy, got him strong. Since then, he's PR'd at all distances. 5K, 10K, half marathon, 50K, 50 miler. Ran his first 100K and 100 miles this year. What's interesting is as his performance totally blew up, he was preparing for 100 miles and got sick and couldn't put in the type of miles that he wanted to. It was like this really nasty cold that hung on for like 4 or 5 weeks or something. And so leading up to his 100 miler, his first 100 miler, he essentially ran 100 miles on strength base, old aerobic base, and sheer will and determination. I mean, the amount of mental fortitude he showed to get that done was a big deal. But he repeatedly has told me the confidence that he had because of how strong he was and how good he felt got him through. And he knew that he could do it because all he had to do was put his mind to it, which is crazy for 100 miles. But yeah, so that's Jim. And then the last one, I've told this story before, but it's kind of an important story, is Eric. Eric calls me up and says, I've never been able to run. I've always had pain with running. I've never been able to do any activity, actually, and was wondering if you can do a gait evaluation and tell me if maybe I'm doing something wrong. So he wasn't hurt at the time. He just couldn't really tolerate running. So did a gait evaluation, put him on a very elementary strength program because that's really all he wanted to do. And then 6 months later, he calls me up and says, do you think I can run a marathon? I said, well, let's put you back on the treadmill. Let's see how your gait's going. Let's increase your strength program and let's add some miles. So he's able to run a marathon, no trouble. And we start really paying attention to the details of his marathon. And he was only a couple of minutes away from qualifying for Boston. So he looks at me and he goes, do you think I can qualify for Boston? And I was like, do you think you can drop 6 minutes? He was like, yes. And I said, well, we haven't really done any speed work at that distance. So really, you're just on a foundation program. So let's sign up for 3 marathons next year. Let's increase your strength program. Let's increase your base mileage. Let's get your body ready to do 3 marathons next year. And then he qualified for Boston in the first of those 3. And I think he's on his like 15th or 20th marathon at the moment. And he's ran Boston twice. And continues to run 70-ish miles a week and is totally killing it. And he's dropped 50 pounds and dramatically improved his self-image, and he's just way more confident, way more happier dude. His wife even told me he's such a joy to be around because of what he's been able to do, and just has really done great. So essentially, taking a runner with 0 training age and teaching him to get ready to even run, and then taking the run base and making it into a Boston qualifying base. That's essentially the training that we did to get him ready for that. Not to mention CrossFit coaches who have come and PR'd their Olympic lifts in PT session. Not to mention helping high-level Olympic lifters do better in competition and have less symptoms. So very, very wide variety of athletes come and get training improvements. Essentially, some of the concepts that we're working through are chronic workload versus acute workload. So evaluating what somebody's done in their life is essentially the chronic workload. And then how do we manipulate the acute workload, what they're doing today, to increase and provide a stress that gets them to adapt to be able to do the things that they want to do. So having an understanding of chronic versus acute workload and how to manipulate what we're doing now to get to our goals, that's one of the reasons why we're able to help people reach their goals. Gait training, great. Gait evaluation, gait retraining is a tool, and there's a podcast on that, is a tool that I use to help runners get more efficient. And if you're running with pain, a lot of times there's some gait retraining that we need to do in order to get you healthy. That's based on physical therapy concepts and bleed into strength and conditioning. So it's a hybrid of those 3 things in order to get you back to where you want to go. Having a intimate and superior knowledge and experience with biomechanics and how a person moves, whether that's running or under a barbell or throwing as a pitcher, which I work with tons and tons of baseball players, even have some professional baseball players, college baseball players. So this sports performance thing is becoming what we do on the daily. Olympic lifting, an expert in periodization, which is how to change the volume over time so a person doesn't get hurt and gets the most out of their training. I have a marathoner. He's running, I think, his 3rd marathon at CIM in a couple of weeks, and he's probably going to PR his marathon by 35 minutes, just based on understanding tempo, understanding volume, getting his body healthy and strong, and putting him in a position to develop a race strategy and nutrition strategy. And so he's going to kill his marathon. And we always have a foundation of therapeutics, a physical therapist who puts them on a strength program that eventually gets to heavy bars, and then beyond building speed, building aerobic capacity, building stress resistance. That's essentially how we're able to help people reach all their goals. So whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old, I don't care how old you are, if you have any limitations in performance due to injury or training wise, Maximum Velocity is the leader in this community. And I would put the ability to help these athletes up against anybody in the country, anybody locally, and we're just getting people to perform at a really high level. It's just a matter of time before more and more people know that. The industrial athlete program is about to kick off, where I'm doing a strength training program for in corporate America, and we're trying to improve performance and decrease injuries, decrease workman's comp claims, and just trying to improve human performance as a general goal. So you will leave a better athlete than when you came, and you'll definitely be more knowledgeable and understand what training errors you were making, what you were doing to your body to get yourself in trouble, and what to do in the future to prevent that from happening. So for all your performance needs, maximum velocity physical therapy, for this episode, Hyperspeed Radio, we're out.